As we turn our attention to entrepreneurial motivation, we're going to start the conversation with a discussion of self-efficacy. And specifically, we're going to examine how self-efficacy impacts you, the entrepreneur, and your mindset. We're going to examine its broader impact on entrepreneurs. We're going to talk about how to assess and improve your own self-efficacy. So within the opportunity analysis canvas, entrepreneurial motivation is the second step of that, and there are three key elements that we're going to be examining within that. Broadly, when we look at entrepreneurial motivation, we're talking about elements and factors that influence how goal-directed behavior is initiated, energized, and maintained. The three elements we're going to look at are self-efficacy today, and then subsequently cognitive motivation and tolerance for ambiguity. So to define self-efficacy, it's your belief in your ability to accomplish a specific task. And thereby it intersects an element of mindset as well as an element of entrepreneurial motivation. Confidence and locus of control are general characteristics that apply to all tasks. We generally think of ourselves as confident or less confident, or having an internal locus of control or an external locus of control, or some balance therein, but it's something that is broadly defined and looking at all tasks. Self-efficacy differs from confidence, and that self-efficacy is task dependent. For example, if you enjoy numbers and think of yourself as a number person, your self-efficacy for dealing with financial matters is probably high. If you fear public speaking and you don't necessarily think you are effective as a public speaker, your self-efficacy for selling in front of an audience or marketing in front of a crowd may be a bit low. Sports is a good analogy. You may feel that you are a confident person, but if you've never played tennis, you may not feel that you are going to be a very effective or very competitive tennis player. And so in that context, when we look at self-efficacy, it's differentiated from confidence in that it is, again, task dependent. Now, the benefits of having a high self-efficacy as it's related to entrepreneurship and the creation and launch of new ventures are many. It certainly is a key predictor of individual performance. Naturally, if you think that you can do something well, much like our discussion of optimism, the likelihood of it becoming done well is higher than if you go into it with a low self-efficacy. And so for that reason, it's very important and very valuable to increase self-efficacy, and we'll talk about some different ways to do that. And we'll talk about individuals that have done that. This is a short story of a small family-owned sign company outside of Atlanta, Georgia, that the father of the company passed away when the son was 25. And at 25, he inherited a small billboard company, a small advertising company, and built that company up over the subsequent years in the billboard and then the public advertising space. He then became involved and interested in television and bought rights to a local, initially Atlanta-only broadcast market for local public television, something that you could pick up on your antenna attached to your television. And this was in the 1970s. When you buy a television station, you need content. And you need 24 hours of content, 7 days a week, if you want to make maximum use of your channel that you've purchased and are broadcasting. One way to do that is to produce films and movies of your own, but that's expensive. Another way to do that is to buy films and television content from others. That's expensive. At its time, and given the competing alternatives, and given the relatively small size and youth and limited success of the Atlanta Braves, they were an affordable option to buying content for the television station. Subsequently, wrestling fit the same mold. So in that way, to go from sign promoter to television broadcaster to sports owner was a logical progression that then brought him back full circle into thinking about new television channels in a time where the idea of broadcasting 24-hour news 7 days a week was not a smart idea by most people in the industry. If it was a good idea, you would think that NBC and ABC and CBS and BBC and other leading television broadcasters around the globe would have done it, but CNN was the first. CNN was the first to do news 24/7. And that has blossomed into many other channels that you're likely familiar with. And more recently, this entrepreneur has gone into doing restaurants. And if you haven't figured it out by now, the name of the restaurant is a clue to Ted Turner and the success that he's had, and the success that he's had in the context of having a very high self-efficacy as it's related to business and as it's related to starting and growing a variety of different types and categories of business that are very different, from advertising to media to sports to restaurants, and has had great success in many of these. But he's had some faults, and he had one fault in a merger that caused him to lose 80% of his wealth. So in summary, when we look at self-efficacy, it is a key predictor of individual performance in entrepreneurial endeavors. Now, for some of us, it may be innate. For others, it may be learned. For all of us, I would argue it's a bit of both. There might be elements of our background, of our experiences, of childhood, of professional experiences, of education, that give us some measure of self-efficacy that are innate and learned. And through our course, what we hope to do is to continue to drive and elevate that. And that learning how to improve self-efficacy starts with understanding where you are, baselining some of those measures. And later we're going to talk about some further elements of how to enhance and improve that.